So I'm out here in the garage today working on the motor that's going to go back in the Rambler. I've got some optional equipment on here that's pretty pricey. Well, for one thing, brand new oil pan, one-piece rubber oil pan gasket all the way around. This is 60 over 350. The block is from the 80s, 4-bolt main. It's got flat top pistons in it. It's got this starter here, which is not one of the cheap Chinese starters, but one of the high-dollar Jegs starters. And it's got these Flowtech heads, and it's got these crane valve rockers. I think these are called Pro Race or something like that, Race Pro, something like that. It's got a big old fat cam in there, comp cam. In putting it together, I have an interesting thing with the Flywheel. It's my understanding that this space should be much less than it is. It looks like it's, I can get the light right where you can see it. Looks like it's 1/4 inch, maybe 3/8. And if I'm reading this right, it looks like over here it's only supposed to be, they're saying 60 thousandths. The face of the ring gear for the front of the starter pinion. Now, if you're measuring the starter pinion, they may be talking about this here, but even that wouldn't be just right. When you engage this, it goes into this gear, maybe about as much as right there where you can see this wear. But this flywheel is warped, so it goes like, it kind of reminds me of an old Crosley flywheel I used to have, and it was warped, and when I looked at it, it had been welded on warped. So I don't know if this one has been or not. Actually, it looks like it could be, because if I look right here, I can see a tiny space, and if I look right here, well, I don't know. Anyway, bottom line is I've been spending way too much time online today. I found a cheap Chinese flywheel that someone commented that you could reverse it in order to get these gears to be shallower or deeper in order to get the starter set up right. So I went ahead and ordered one. Now this will start on this, but it's been my experience that when you've got a flywheel where the starter gear is just working the edge, it's going to wear that edge off after a while. And I'd rather not have to pull the engine again to change the flywheel later on. So I went ahead and bought that one. It was only 20 bucks. Now they had flywheels up toward $100, but I really couldn't find any that stated that particular thing about the gears being mounted so that you could reverse the flywheel. And apparently there's a variety of flywheel options that have different things to do with what kind of main bearings you have, whether there's one piece or two piece, and according to what I've read, the one piece main bearings require a flywheel that's externally balanced, and the two-piece require one that's internally balanced. It's just, it gets complicated. So let's just hope. I'm crossing my fingers. I figure for 20 bucks I'll buy it and we'll get it in here and we'll try it. And if it don't work, I got an extra flywheel that fits something for 20 bucks. So I guess the next thing I'm going to do is I hadn't put oil in it yet because I knew I was going to be flipping it up and messing with this starter. So other than a little break-in oil on all the moving parts. So what I'll do is probably flip it up, get some oil in the engine, put the intake manifold on here. I'm going to need to stop up this oil journal. And what I'll probably want to do is put a gauge in that, an oil pressure gauge, so I can watch my gauge. I want to crank this one. I have thought about cranking it right here on the stand, but I've also thought about maybe instead of doing that, I might go down in the woods and pull out my engine stand, the one that I had that other engine sitting on in here for such a long time, which would give me an option to run it and put a radiator on it and keep an eye out for water leaks and all kind of fun stuff like that. But on the other hand, about the only reason I really need to run this much is I like to make sure I've got the distributor in there just as it should be before I go cranking on it, because sometimes when you're laying over the hood of a car and the distributor is back here in the back like it is on a Chevy, it's pretty hard to get to. On the other hand, though, you know, I know how to find the compression stroke, and that shouldn't be an issue. So I don't know. What I think I'll probably do next is go ahead and get the intake manifold, which I believe I have right over here. Let's take a look. See what we got here. Yeah, there's the intake manifold. And usually what you do on these ones is this little part down in the valley right here, Mr. Heavy Chevy says just make that out of gasket. What do you call that stuff? Gasket maker. But I probably do have, that's usually this rubber piece, like you got one that looks like this, and you got one that looks like that. I think I have used these before. I remember messing around on the rat rod on that 283 that's in the rat rod. See, this one's going to go up here, and this one's going to go back here. Oh, the joy. Anyway, so I'll flip this engine up. We'll put those gaskets in place. The intake manifold back in the garage out back, and the carburetor's up on that shelf. If I'm gonna crank it, I need to put the starter on it. Starter. See, I'm trying to think and talk at the same time. That doesn't always work. If I'm gonna crank it, I'm gonna need to put the fuel pump on it, not starter. It's a little heavy right there. So, I think I need to keep y'all hanging out with me here while I do all this stuff. So, do all this stuff, then I'll come back and we'll talk some more. Oh, good job.